A quick note before this video begins. What you will be seeing on screen after the intro will be from a replay due to a recording issue. Now I have synced it up with my voice and everything that you hear, so there should be no difference in terms of what you are seeing to what I saw whilst I was actually recording it. However, unfortunately, there will be no performance delta in this video. If you really want to know what my lap times are like as they change, unfortunately, you're going to have to grab a stopwatch. Hello and welcome back to Assetto Corsa for yet another video and a return to the videos on the Nordschleife challenge. Thank you very much for joining me in today's video, and for the return to the challenge, I have decided to take out this. This is the Chevrolet Corvette C7 Stingray, or Stingray C7, no, C7 Stingray Coupe, because they did have a Cabriolet version, but there is no Cabriolet version in Assetto Corsa, and in any case that would be a heavier vehicle. This car has a 6.2 litre V8 engine, front mounted as well, front mounted V8 engine, which produces 450 brake horsepower at 6,000 RPM and 460 pound-feet of torque, or 625 Newton meters or thereabouts at 4,600 RPM, which all goes through a 7-speed manual gearbox to the rear wheels. Yes, I did say that. 7-speed manual gearbox. We are probably not going to be using 7th gear today because, if I remember correctly, 7th gear is an overdrive gear, and it really is not going to be good for the power on this particular car. And when we do get to a point where we need 7th, it is going to be useless, because as soon as you put it into 7th, it is going to slow the car down. If I remember correctly, I will have to see when I'm doing my practice. So since this all goes to the rear wheels or the rear tyres do need to be quite wide. So the rear tyres are 285/30 R20s. R20s? I thought these were R19s. It has been a little difficult trying to find some of the specifications for this, but I do believe that the specs that I just read out were wrong. They are 285/35 R19s on the rear and 245/40 R18s on the front. Again, with the 1-inch difference front and rear, as you've watched on my previous videos, I am not a fan of different tyre sizes or different wheel sizes. I think that they should be the same wheel size front and back. But 285s on the rear, it's not as wide as I thought it would be for the amount of power and torque that is going to go through this vehicle. The mass of this car is 1,540 kilograms, which in pounds is 3,393 pounds. So it isn't the heaviest of cars, but it is not exactly a light car. 0 to 60 in this car is 4 seconds or 4.1 seconds, with a top speed of 180 miles per hour or 290 kilometers per hour. It is naturally aspirated. It is a V8. This is going to be a little bit interesting when it comes to figuring out exactly how best to drive this car. I think that I'm going to have a fair amount of sliding. I think that I'm probably going to crash a few times for 2 reasons. One, it's going to be a slidey car, and 2, I'm still getting used to my new equipment, but that's what the Patreon laps are going to be for. So if you want to see me doing some practice on this, make sure you do go check out the Patreon laps, which will be me practicing between now and the next part that you see after the intro. Just as a reminder, there will be no traction control on in this car, but I have now started, or I am now going to be using ABS. If you're concerned that that's going to skew the previous results, worry not, because I am going to be returning to every single car thus far in the challenge. That's 31 cars thus far. I will be returning to them with ABS on, and I'm going to try and get the fastest lap time I can out of those cars. I say every car, not every car had ABS. Yeah, 40 does not have ABS. I think the CTR Yellowbird does not have ABS. Anyway, before I roll the intro and get into the hot laps, quickly on the screen I'm going to show you the top 10 currently. It's been a long time, so I'm going to have to take a look for myself at the top 10. And in the lead we have the Porsche 911R. This is not going to get anywhere near that. In fact, to be fair, I'm not sure about the hypercar road tyres anyway. I'm a little bit concerned on that. You then have the 458 Italia. I do not think this is going to be anywhere near that. My guess for this car is going to be between 7 minutes 55 and 8 minutes 5. So somewhere between 6th and 10th position is where I think this car is going to go. But what do you think? Leave it in the comments box below. I will read them. Let's see how close you are. Let's see how close I was. Just one more point to mention. This car is supposed to have Michelin Supersport, Pilot Sport, the Supersport ones, Pilot Supersports. Why can I read Hankook tyres there? That isn't what this car's supposed to have out of the factory. But anyway, let's see what I can do with this particular car. As I said, if you want to see the Patreon laps, do go check out my Patreon channel. But if not, stay tuned, because next up after the intro is going to be a couple of fast laps, and let's see where this goes on the board. Okay, here we go. First lap coming up after my couple of practice laps on Patreon. And there are a few things about this car that I'm already noticing. One is the gearing. As I said before, as I said in the intro, the gearing for 7th is really long. Well, I've found that I've not even used 6th in this. That's the interesting things that I've found so far. The highest I've been in is 5th. I just do not need to go up to 6th. It doesn't seem to. It just doesn't seem to be a useful gear. And in addition to that, I've found that 4th seems to be a favourite gear. In terms of it's a good gear to use for a lot of sections. Sometimes 3rd, but mostly 4th is the gear you want. For example, there as well, I just downshifted to 3rd momentarily, but 4th was the gear of choice. Already a second up. I should follow my own rules of stop looking at the times because you're going to mess up. Driving this car is really quite nice. It's a very nice handling car overall. It's quite agile. You can feel the weight through some corners though. The front engine, it's quite heavy in some senses, and you do feel it wanting to understeer. But I think they've got it planted quite well. I think whatever the suspension setup they have on this, it does its best to, there you go, you just feel a little bit of understeer. The nose just wants to push. Unlike perhaps something like a Ferrari, where the nose would not really be pushing out so much, in this it does tend to push a little. But that's not too big a deal. Front engine rear wheel drive cars are quite popular, just not in this territory. I think the other car that I can think of that would fit in this territory is the Dodge Viper. I think the Dodge Viper belongs in this area. Obviously I know that the C8 Corvette is nothing like this. It's mid-engined now, but I think if we look at the C7 and all the other Corvettes, so even down to the C6, 5, all the way down to C1, they've all been front-engined rear-wheel drive. Occasionally under power, only occasionally though, you will get the rear end of the car stepping out. But again, it's so well balanced and so well poised. You it's not often that happens, and it's surprising in that sense that it's not a thing. This sort of rear end stepping out, and it's not a problem that I'm fighting on every corner. I was expecting that with no traction control I would be fighting every single corner to try and control the car and keep it pointing in the direction I want it to be pointing, but that really isn't the case. High speeds as well, it handles high speeds really well. The steering is quite responsive. What I will say is that I think that the gearing is quite strange on this car. I do find the gearing really strange. As you may see here, I cannot shift down to third in this area, where normally in any other car I would probably be shifting down a gear, but in this you can't, because if you do, you're already buzzing around 6,200, 6,300 RPM, and that's just going to mess up. That gear change then messes up your lap and messes up your timing. So it's really odd how some of the gears in this car drive. I have to say, I was expecting me to be doing a lot worse with my direct drive wheel for, coming back into the Nordschleife challenge like this, but it seems to be like I'm handling it decently. It's not. I still know I'm not perfect on this, or I'm not quite at the level of the G27 yet. In fact, I may now be at the level of the G27. But I'm still, obviously, I know that there's a lot more that can now be gained from this. So I've got to get to that point where I'm, instead of, let's see, that should be third. This should be second. So instead of me trying to get to the lap time of the G27s, now I should be looking at going beyond that lap time, because I think it can be done. This is actually a really good lap. I am quite surprised at myself here. This is actually a good lap. Who knew that was something that I would be capable of? A little bit shy on the throttle there, but overall, careful. I say this is a good lap. There's still a few corners to go. Anything could go wrong. Actually, third gear is the right gear here. Yeah, see, lost a bit of momentum there that I can probably gain back if I get another good lap like this. But that's a big if now. Am I going to... Has this been one of those one-lap wonders where the first lap is going to be the best I'm going to get out of anything? Because if so, we have a small problem then. So, what is the lap time going to be? I said between a 7:55 and an 8:05. Now, I know what this car is capable of from the Patreon laps. So, let's see exactly where we get on this, because this could be interesting. Come on. Alright, on the brakes. Or I can brake just a little later there. That's pretty good. 8 minutes 5. Well, I think you would agree that I was bang on the money there. Okay, let's go for a second lap. Let's just see. I mean, as I said, normally I do multiple laps, so let's see if there's anything else I could pull out of this lap that will improve my lap time further. Because I think there are a few points where I was a little bit slower than I should be, so if I can do something there, then maybe that will help. Okay, apparently 1 second up already. I'm not sure how I've done that, but we are battling for. Yeah, we are battling here for. Now we're fighting for the position of the. Well, we're ahead of the Testarossa at this point. If I keep this lap together, it's ahead of the Testarossa. If we go into the threes, we are then fighting the Giulia Quadrifoglio, which would make sense to me because of the style of these cars. Yes, this car looks like it's for a different audience, but it's a similar sort of power to weight ratio, I think, on this car. And I think it's just a similar overall. I think it's just a similar class overall. That's what I would put it in. Yes, it's a designed for a different audience because ones I think can seat 4 people, whilst that's a Quadrifoglio. Whereas I do not think this can. This is a coupe. The Quadrifoglio is more of a saloon. So there is that. But oh, careful. That could have been bad. That could have been bad as well. As you can see, I am pushing the car. It's not like I want the Alfa Romeo to win or anything here. I am definitely pushing this car. So I know that I was a little bit slower through that than I should have been. In the previous lap, so I think that was better. Right, off the brakes slightly, then on the brakes. And I should gain some time here. There we go. Not a lot, but we're still 3/10 down on the Giulia. That's fine. Third gear through this is okay, always has been. And I wonder if third gear through this will be okay. Actually, third gear is better through that. This is what I mean about third and, obviously, as I said at the start, fourth gear. They just seem to be gears that the favourite gears. And as I pointed out, for me, fourth seems to be the favourite gear. So, as soon as I go to fourth here, for example, from here, I'm going to stay in fourth all the way until we have to slow down right in the tighter right-hander. Eight minutes 2. So at the moment, we're now looking against the Exige S. That's a car I like. Uh-oh. That's messed that lap up. I'm going to continue the lap, but that means I have to take it again. That means I am going to have to do another lap for this. But it just shows this car is capable. That was slightly too fast. I wasn't really paying attention. I was looking at the time for the Lotus Exige S on my other screen. That was silly of me, that was. That was very silly of me. But just to show that even with that slight off, we're still looking at a bit of understeer there. We're still looking around the 8 minutes 3. I wonder if third gear would be good there. I know that we leave it in third through all of this, that's for sure. Yeah, third through there, third through there, third through there. That's something that most cars tend to do. In this area, most cars tend to stay in a single gear. Although here, again, I wouldn't expect third to be the gear that you hold through there. I needed to brake a little bit more, and then we've understeered a little, but again, you're going to end up holding third through a lot of these. And now see, on the previous lap, I did that section much better. And even now, carrying just a little bit too much speed, I'm trying to claw back some lap time that I've lost, so I have an idea as to what lap time I'm aiming towards, or what lap time I should be able to get. And I think I'm just over pushing the car just a little. Now here, again, I'm not going to shift down, so you do not shift down to second. You're going to just have to deal with the little bit of understeer and look at the amount of time you pick up, and then you shift down to second for mini carousel. Power your way up. Whoops. Watch that, and then hold it in third, and then just keep it in third through this entire section until you're out on the straight. And that looks good. Straight line it, or almost straight line it. We are ahead of the Giulia at this point, just ahead of the Giulia by 0.2 of a second. But obviously we had that bump, so realistically now we're looking at the Lotus Exige S. So one more lap, and let's see if the Exige S is the one that we can get past and get to. Ooh, okay, that's tough to hold together. Okay. So that was an 8:03.1, I think. Let's see what we can do this time around. I'm not sure if it counted that one. I guess it did. So I'm going to have to try and fight up against that, but I'm really not going to bother looking at the... I'm not looking at the time anymore. Again, hold it in fourth. That works. It's strange, it's really strange the way fourth gear works in this car. It's just such a long, such a tall gear, and it just does a lot for this car. Oh, that was very close on the brakes there. Come on. 8:02.699 to beat for the Lotus Exige S. That's what I'm looking to beat at the moment. Really slowed it down there to try and make sure I got that corner, because that was going quite quickly. Right now we're up on the Exige, just. This is a tough one. It really is not an easy one to be fighting up against. I'm actually aiming for the 8 minutes mark now, because I think that could be possible. I'm not sure how possible, but I think that there is a possibility on it. Holding it in third through that was actually quite useful. Tyre squeal, tyre squeal, tyre squeal. Early to third to just ensure that we do not have wheel spin. Pretty hard on the brakes. Oh dear, missed the apex. That's going to cost me about half a second. It's fine. It's still a valid lap. Come on, come on, come on. 8 minutes. 8 minutes is possible with this car. I'm sure of it. I'm absolutely certain that 8 minutes is possible with this car. So in which case, me saying between 7:55 and 8:05, and I guess in 8 minutes dead if I manage to do that, that would be, I'd say my estimate was correct. That's it. Just try and scrub the minimum amount of speed off this, but remember to slow down massively this time around. Do not mess that up. There we go. Much better. That was probably as much speed as I dare carry through that. And similarly here. Ooh, little bit deep on the brakes there, but still doing okay. Hard on the brakes for that. Careful, I have been caught out by this before. So once I was caught out with the, was it the 458, and it caught on the inside, and it just essentially threw the car out of the carousel in a really strange way. I've never actually experienced a car do that before, so I found that rather strange. Alright, come on, hold it together. I feel like this is a good lap, but how good, I do not know. I'm keeping myself completely focused on the track. Not even looking at the lap times. I see greens, but that's about it. I'm not sure what kind of greens they are or how close they are. That was a bit of a rubbish corner though. The car just understeered, and a snap of oversteer there, which I had to catch. Right, let's try and get this a little bit better this time. There we go. That's a little better, I think. Whoa. Ease off the accelerator just a little. Probably will lose a bit of time there, but it's important because I need to be able to get the car turning, and that's the part that, though you can gain speed when you're on the accelerator, obviously you're gaining speed, but at the same time you're losing time when it comes to, if you're going into a corner just a little too fast, then you end up losing time. And that's why you've got to be really careful with some of these cars. You do not want to lose any time if you can help it, going through corners, because corners is where most time is won and lost. Right, third gear, that's pretty good. Keep it careful. Almost lost the car there as well. Okay, Now I can look at the time. 8 minutes. It had to be, didn't it? 7 minutes 59, okay. So now if I want to play this carefully and I want to make sure it's 8 minutes on the dot, then no, actually I do not want 8 minutes on the dot, because 7:59 beats the CTR Yellowbird just by 0.4 of a second at the moment. Oh, that's a big deal, that is. Careful, that's it. Slow it down. $7:59, 7:06, and I think I am good with that particular number. So at 7 minutes 59 point whatever it was, it should now come up on the screen for you, and that slots the car into 7th place. Amazingly, pretty much where I thought it would go in terms of I thought, actually let me just put that into 4th. I thought it would be somewhere between 7:55 and 8:05. That's almost right in the middle. 0.3 off the middle of that time. So I think I've done a good job there. It does mean that it goes ahead of the CTR Yellowbird, but crucially, it goes behind the Viper, the old Viper RT10. Now, thinking about it, it kind of makes sense that the car would be around that area, because the RT10 was in that area. Now, I think the only reason the RT10 has been so fast was, I think there was less, it was a much more stable car, and I do not know if that's got anything to do with the fact that it's a mod or anything. I have no idea if that's what the reason why it was so stable. But 7:57 for the RT10, and to be fair, I think I could probably get this Corvette into that area as well. I think I could get this Corvette into the RT10 757 area. I do not think I'll beat a Lamborghini Diablo. I do not think it's possible for me to get to that Diablo, but that's not bad. 7th place overall. Now, what about the driver ranking? So, if you're new to this, the driver ranking is me saying what is this car like to drive. As a driver, it has nothing to do with the speed of the car or anything like that. It's just, do I like this car in terms of drivability? Sometimes the cars, obviously the looks of the car, the design of the car, all of that plays a small factor, because it's all about how I feel on the car. Now, honestly, I'm not thinking. I'm thinking it's not the first page, because in the first page we've got things like Skylines and that M3 E30, which the more I look at it, the less I think it actually belongs quite that high up. And you've got the 458s and all these cars that were fantastically good to drive. This was really, really good, but I do not think it was quite up in that range. I think, looking at the second page, we've got a 512 Testarossa, we've got the Exige Scura, which was not a fast car, well, comparatively, it was an 8 minutes 12 or something. And we've got a BMW M4, which was fairly fast, an 805. Then we've got the RX-7, the Miura, the Mustang, and things like that. Now, I think that this is a better car to drive than the Mustang, so that means that this is at least 15th. The Miura and the RX-7 they were very close when I was thinking about overall driving. So I'm not sure. I think this does go a little bit above them, and then it's the M4, which was also fairly close. So could it? I'm just thinking whether this is going to go into 13th place ahead of the M4, or 14th place behind the M4. I think the Scura was, the Exceed Scura was still a better drive. It was just a bit more alive. Same, just like the Testarossa as well. The Testarossa was very alive. The M4 was alive, tail happy, but very similar to this car. Very poised, very controlled. You could slide it if you wanted to. So if I want to slide this car, I could. And I think that the M4 and this are very similar in that sense. So it's just a matter of which one is better. And I think just marginally, I think that I really cannot decide between these two. Between the M4 and this, I am really struggling to decide. Because it is that marginal. I think that this is marginally better than an M4 in terms of drivability. Maybe not in day-to-day, but certainly in terms of what I drove on the Nordschleife, this is just marginally better. So it's going into 13th place. There it is on the board. Thank you very much for watching. That is where I'm going to end this video. Let me know what you thought of my driving. Do you think that I was driving this car better than I've driven other cars before, or do you think I still have much to learn? Leave your comments on any other vehicles you'd like to see. I am going to obviously try and get through as many vehicles as I can, and stay tuned for the repeats of the earlier vehicles. So the first 31 vehicles, I am going to be driving all of them again with my Fanatec hardware, and it's going to be slightly different. The repeats are not the repeats are not going to be like this where I have multiple laps. You will only see the fastest lap, and I will be talking over. In fact, I may not even talk over it. I might just give you a pure fastest lap and then talk at the start and talk at the end of it. If you can do so, please do consider supporting me on Patreon. www.patreon.com/ECGadget. Your support would be massively appreciated, and there are another 30 or so videos of Assetto Corsa on there for you to see, which is me practicing all the cars on this challenge, as well as a number of other videos. And lastly, you can find me on social media at ECGadgetLP for both Twitter and Instagram. That is all from me, and I'll see you next time in Assetto Corsa for another car and another video, but at the same green hell. It's the Nordschleife challenge.